Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is according to the official time, 6 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate y'all being here. For those of you here for the first go around, thank you for coming back or staying. It will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Amen.
Okay, employee recognitions.
Mayor, don't have any employee recognitions for this evening.
Okay. I'm going to take a minute. We had several people sign up to speak this evening. I want to be sure I put you all in the proper position. If you all bear with me a minute. Okay, thank you for that moment. Okay, our first speaker on public comment tonight will be Jennifer Inkston. Well, I gave it my best shot. Eggleston? Eggleston. Okay, thank you. If you'll come to the mic, please, and just let us know if you're a city resident. The next speaker after that will be Tom Marshall. Well, it's not a German name, is it?
On my mom's side.
Okay. I know a German name's pretty good. Thank you.
Let's see if I can adjust this.
And you'll have 3 minutes, and
Okay.
we will have a 1-minute warning.
Okay. And I'll start with this. And I've spoken before, but I'm going to speak on something else tonight. So a lot of you know me, and some of you don't. I moved to Fredericksburg 22 and a half years ago, and that half is important. Like a lot of people, I moved here for very specific reasons. Those of you that know me know that I moved to raise a daughter in a small town and a community, and I think community is a very important word. My thought process has always been whoever loves my daughter and I, for who we are, where we are, is who we'll love back. Something that's very important to us is volunteering, being active in our community, and being invested. So my daughter grew up, ever since she was little, volunteering in Vacation Bible School, community education, theater, being active in voting. I've noticed a lot of people that have come here to talk and discuss have been very upset and discouraged in active voter participation. I know my daughter's been discouraged in watching the meetings from a distance in college. One of the things that she's discouraged in is watching how our community has evolved with an underlying element of aggression, division, hate, targeting and calling out anyone who is perceived to be different. We didn't grow up that way. We certainly didn't move here to learn that. I don't think this is who we are. Scaring people into compliance, I pray that that's not who we are. Something that my daughter said I thought was really important. Freedom doesn't really work both ways. You know, when you vote, part of being active in a community comes with putting signs in your yard. Something that was put out on social media about signs in my yard and somebody else's basically said, now if you know and you didn't already, to the people that are proponents of government shutdowns, masking forever for the greater good, defunding police, sanctuary cities, BLM, Trump haters, transgender for minors, fight election integrity, abortion-loving, open borders, forced vaccinations, critical race theory in public schools, closing churches, etc., you now do. That was said about my yard and some other yards. That hurts our community more than people will ever know. This is who Democrats in Fredericksburg want, and they got yesterday. So now you see who Bobby Watson really is. Well, I'll say he's my friend. He had a sign in my yard. I don't understand what's going on in our community. I moved here for very specific reasons, and it was to be a part of a community who loves one another.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Tom Marshall, and then George Studer will be the next speaker. 3 minutes with the 1 minute warning.
My name is Tom Marshall. I am a resident of Fredericksburg. My first statement is really a follow-up of the previous comment in the first meeting. I appreciate the good answer that I got, but I kind of get the feeling that it's rather vague and not clear what the situation really is. That's my personal opinion of what I heard. The other thing is that from my personal observations, there were some things done over the past year, I don't believe with intent, but I believe possibly with misunderstanding and some vagueness in what it is that our Constitution actually means to us. In particular, when I read our state constitution that says no person is to be deprived of life or liberty, that is in our Bill of Rights. And two people just swore to protect that constitution. And I think where the problem comes in is whether or not we're protecting life or we're protecting the right to life. There is a difference, and I hope you can see it. The right to liberty was really trashed. I don't believe it was intentional. There was a lot of keeping up with the Joneses. But please, think about that right to life, the right to liberty. I understand that, yes, the hospital makes recommendations. Nowhere in that oath was the hospital mentioned.
1 minute.
So please think about those things. Let's not have a repeat of what we had the last year. Respect and protect our rights as guaranteed by our constitutions. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. George, and then the next speaker would be James McDonald.
Hi, George Studer. I'm at 1015 Avenue D, checking on Jerry when he goes to work and doesn't go to work. First, I want to say congratulations on the STR survey that was put out there. I thought that was really well done and appropriate to try to get the public true opinion. There's a lot of good questions in there, and I would encourage anybody here, either side of the fence when it comes to STRs and our future here in Fredericksburg, to look at that and fill it out so we have a full breadth of the opinion. And to encourage participation on May 25th. Another thing I want to mention is I noticed that when we say the pledge, we say one nation under God. And then when we say our oaths, we say, so help me God. And this week, we want to bring up the topic of adding an invocation to your meeting. And I think whatever your faith is, we need to be under God just because that's the way it is. It's reality. And we admitted that when we do the Pledge of Allegiance each time, and we admit that when we say we need his help in our oath of office. And so I think it's appropriate for here. Yeah, and the last thing is congratulations to you two guys for winning, and boy, one more year, less than a year, there's going to be new faces. It's kind of interesting to think about, but so that's all I had to say.
Thank you, George. Okay, James McDonald, and then the next speaker would be Timothy Riley.
My name's James McDonald. I live at 112 Bob White Trail, and just have a couple of comments for tonight. One is I'd request that council ask city staff to have an additional meeting for the STR open house. The two that are scheduled are during working hours on the same day. And I think to really bring in the conversation and educate people on what we're looking at for the STR updates, it's going to be important to allow people to attend when they're off work. Furthermore, I'd ask the council to request from city staff that there be a red line version of the updated historic district guidelines. I've had some conversation, or rather correspondence, with Anna, and she sent me a matrix that outlines what some of the changes are, but to be quite honest with you, you need a good attorney and a scientific calculator to figure it out. I think a red line version would be a very clean and simple way to explain to the public what we're doing. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Okay, Timothy?
Hello, yes, my name is Timothy Ellis Riley. You always have a good time up there, Mr. Lukenbach. I actually owe you a card and another email because it's still waiting on your email. Been about 6 weeks. Yes, sir. And that happens a lot, but it's not easy to communicate, even when you're trying your best, signing up for things, trying to listen and read. And that's why I'm here pretty much every city council meeting until I'm satisfied. I definitely agree with Mr. McDonald. That was definitely on my list today, because as of the last meeting, when I was yelling from the back of the room to the city manager up there, hoping that we would have a great turnout, because of course we all do. 11 to 2 on a Tuesday doesn't necessarily reflect time for everyone. So I'm sure lots of people show up. I'm lucky enough to be able to attend, but more effort there. The only reason I got an STR survey is because I have friends that sent them to me. And again, I am working hard to be on all the email lists with the city. I do work hard to try to participate in all those ways, and I'm still not getting the communication. I look forward to the city manager report on our website. I had a great meeting with Mr. Lutz this week, and I got on our website, tried to search for him, tried to find him. It's not possible. I mean, you have to go click on the department, and he's eventually there. But search engines and full access on our website, it's been I guess laughable. And and again, as of the last meeting, I believe I've learned that City Council can actually respond to public comment. Of course, you'll go back and review that in the same way that I believe Mr. Myers can respond after public comment. As far as I understand it, it's just an interpretation or a choice by the City Council to not respond because, perhaps you'll make a mistake, or you're trying to be neutral, you're trying not to engage in possible conflict. I understand that, but I am asking for more open comment and more opinion from you, even in these exchanges, an actual discussion, which unfortunately didn't happen last time. You know, when I was talking about Mr. Myers having comments afterwards, and it'd be great as long as I can come back down and then start the discussion, but then that's not the protocol of the meeting, which I understand. So on Wednesday in particular, I believe you'll be able to review protocols, you know, maybe where public comments can be in the beginning, maybe at the end, maybe you move some stuff around and show us that you actually want this to be a better environment. And Rockbox has been great. It's better than having you guys up on some big pedestal in the law office center, I'll tell you that. So if this relationship doesn't continue, I'd encourage at least a venue that offers this. But of course, I love the theater, so thank you. I'll be back, I think. Yeah.
Thanks. Unless I missed someone, that those were the only ones who signed up for public comment under this section. The rest that have signed up want to speak to a specific item on the agenda. Okay,
Mayor, could I?
please do.
There was a couple of comments on the public input sessions for the STR ordinance, and that I was going to report on that under 9A, but since those comments were made, I'll just, Jason looked at me and we need to clarify that. So there are two public input sessions on May the 25th. And those are from 11 to 2, and then we have a second one from 3 to 6. And we would encourage the public to show up at either session. And we're anticipating, based upon what we've heard, phone calls, emails, and so forth, we're expecting large numbers of participants at those meetings. If following those meetings, the council feels like we need to have an additional public input session, please let the staff know, and we'd be glad to schedule another session. But we have two of those scheduled on May 25th. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Moving on then, item number 5, consent. The following items may be acted upon in a single motion. No separate discussion or action or any other of these items will be held unless pulled by the request of a member of the city council. A, consider approval of the city council minutes, May 3rd, 2021, regular meeting. I, May 10th, 2021, special meeting. Does anyone need to pull any of these two items? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the
Have a motion
consent
by
items.
Jerry,
I'll second.
second by Tom. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Moving to number 6, public hearings. 6A, hold a public hearing to receive public comments for or against request from Yvonne B. Clanner for voluntary annexation and requested zoning multiple family residential R3 for approximately 10 acres of land out of the A.B. Adams Survey number 123, abstract number 1714, located at 701 West Live Oak Street, Z2107. Do I hear a motion to go out of regular motion to public?
Mayor, I move we go out of regular session into public hearing.
I have a motion by Tom, second by Jerry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone here to speak on item 6A? Appears to be none. I will entertain a
I
motion.
move we go out of regular session, a public hearing back into regular
I
session.
have a motion by Jerry,
Second.
second by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Council. So if you recall, this subject property was approved for annexation at a prior council meeting. This is going through the process to finalize that annexation. As part of the annexation process, we have to establish zoning when we bring that into the city. So this ordinance will do both. At this point, the future land use plan shows this area as high-density residential. After speaking with the applicant, she has no designs to develop the property at this time and would just come in under the existing land use that's called out for the area. It is adjacent to R3 zoning, and the R3 zoning is what shall be attributed for those high-density residential. So the applicant is requesting to just keep that as R3, consistent with the adjacent property to the west and south of her. And I'll be able to answer any other questions if you have any at this time.
Any questions, Tom?
Is the applicant, they're planning on connecting to city sewer?
Yes, sir.
But not on city water at this time?
Just the sewer at this time, yes.
Thank you.
Bobby?
No questions.
Jerry?
No?
Kathy? No. I have none as well. With no other further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve as presented.
Mayor, we need
Oh, we need to read
we need to go to 7A.
No, we're going to do that later, is that correct?
Well, then we can't do anything. Then we need to go to the next public hearing.
Well, that's what I was going to do, all the public hearings first, and then go into the motions there for that.
that's-
Okay.
And Mayor, on the next one, since B, C, and D involve the same property, I would suggest you just have open and close the hearing on all three at the same time.
Tom, you were correct. Yeah, we're going to do all the public hearings first. Thank you for that information. Our next items are B, C, and D, and these all apply to the same, but I'm going to read all of them. B, hold a public hearing to receive citizen comments for or against a request by Kevin Spraggins of VEI Consulting Engineers to change the future land use plan from Employment Center EC to Commercial Center CC for approximately 17.461 acres of land out of the Thomas J. Steele Survey Number 44, Abstract 646, located at 3255 South State Highway 16. That would be Z2104. C, hold a public hearing to receive citizen comments for or against a request by Kevin Spraggins for VE Consulting Engineer for voluntary annexation and request zoning of commercial C2 for approximately 17.461 acres out of the land of the Thomas J. Steele Survey Number 44, Abstract 646, located at 3255 South State Highway 16, Z2104. Also D, hold a public hearing to receive citizen comments for or against a request from Kevin Spraggins with the VEI Consulting Engineers for a conditional use permit, CUP, to allow a land use of campgrounds for approximately 7.61 acres of land out of the Thomas J. Steele Survey Number 44, Abstract Number 646, located at 3255 State Highway 16. Z2104. I'll entertain a motion to go from regular to public.
Move that we go out of regular session into
Have a
public
motion by
hearing.
Tom,
Second.
second by Bobby. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Is anyone here to speak to B, C, or D? There appears to be none. Do we need to go out of, or do we just keep rolling? Do we need to go out of regular, public and go back to regular, back and forth?
Do you want to open another public hearing, or do you want to discuss
Yes.
the items from this public hearing?
No, we'll go to another public hearing. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we close the public hearing, go back into regular session.
Have a motion by Tom. Second by Jerry. Any discussion? There is none. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Going to public hearing E, hold a public hearing to receive comments for or against a request by Whitney Cup with Muster Design to consider a conditional use permit, section 5.00, for condominium residential use for C1 zone property located at 815 Wellness Court, Z2105. I'll entertain a motion to go from regular to public.
Move we go to regular into public hearing.
Got a motion by Jerry, second by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, is there anyone here to speak to E during this time? Oh, here comes somebody.
My name is actually Whitney Cuff. I am the architect of the project. I just wanted to make a brief note that we have met the guidelines that P&Z has requested of us and provided additional parking such that we are providing one parking space for every bedroom that is proposed in the development. That's all I have to add at this point.
Thank you. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to go from public to private, to regular.
Yep.
So moved. We have a motion by Kathy.
Second.
Second by Jerry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Going to 6F, hold a public hearing to receive citizen comments for or against request by Joseph Simmons to consider a zoning change from R1 single-family residential to R2 mixed residential and land use change from low density to medium density residential on property located at 305 North Elk Street at 502 and 506 East Schubert Street, Z2106. I'll entertain a motion to go from regular to public.
I move that we go from regular session into public hearing.
Second. I have a motion by Tom and a second by Bobby. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Is there anyone here to speak at this time on this particular public? Actually, y'all are set up for the agenda item, but if y'all want to speak to it now, you surely can. Okay.
I'll hop up real fast.
Okay.
One thing I do forget every time I get up here is saying my address. So I do live on Schubert Street, East Schubert Street, 1 block from this proposed amendment here. And I guess I would just say, as always, as we're going to continue to talk about STRs and how we regulate those, this specific area and this whole block here, and most of my block is STR. So please be wary of changing those zonings. I would say that changing it from R1 to R2 should not happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. Anyone else? Jennifer? And you'll state your name, please. And you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Terry Walsh, and my siblings and I own a property on Travis Street, and it is across from this property on Schubert. And we are opposed to this change. And I did send you written comments, and I don't know if you've received them.
Yes, we did.
Okay. Well, I think we know traffic is bad at that intersection, but there are lots of other streets that have the same traffic congestion. So to say that since traffic is already bad, this should encourage or allow a different zoning doesn't seem very logical to me. I mean, that same logic could be applied to a lot of different streets in town. And the documentation didn't really reflect comments that were received at the May 5th hearing, because the entire block of Travis Street across from this property on Schubert, you did get opposition, with the exception of one property at the very end that is farther up the block. And I don't know why that wasn't reflected in the diagram on page 91. And I think off-street, if this were to be approved, the off-street parking is an issue, and to have additional street parking in a residential area is not a good idea. So even though a lot of these are short-term rental properties in this neighborhood, there are also residents that live there. And, you know, Fredericksburg, there's a Gemütlichkeit that we value. And so I would encourage you not to change the zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. John, you can speak to this now, but you want to speak to it?
wait later?
It's whatever you want.
I didn't know you could later.
Yeah, no, you're on there for 6F, John.
Mayor, I would suggest that he does speak during the public hearing.
Okay.
This will reflect the record of anybody that's opposed or supports the.
Getting his exercise in.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel.
Sorry. Good evening. Thank you for holding the public hearing. I'm Terry's brother. I'm John Walsh, and I'm one of the co-owners of that property across the street from this. And Walsh family's owned property since the 1840s in that neighborhood. The Walsh House, caddy corner from the Nimitz Hotel, and the 10-acre outlot that we still own part of. It's a residential area. It's close to two very important historical attractions, the Nimitz Complex, the National Museum of the Pacific War, and the Der Stadt Friedhof, which we just had a tour of on the 175th celebration of the founding of Fredericksburg. And I'm just trying to relate what we do, what you do as city council members, provide direction for Fredericksburg. Is this what the founders of Fredericksburg envisioned? Continuing to change the place where common people can't have a home and live in peace, and that's what I would like to see. So I recommend that you do not change the residential zoning from R1 to R2. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Mayor, there's another person I wanted to speak.
Okay.
Jennifer Eggleston.
You'll state your name, please. Will you please state your name?
Yes, my name is Joe Simmons, and so I'm the applicant for the zoning change, and I just thought it was important that you know that the reasons for it. I purchased the home probably 6 or 7 years ago for it to be hopefully a place that I would retire to at some point in time. I travel down here quite a bit. I stay here quite a bit. I don't know whether you can call me quote unquote a primary resident, but I'm hopeful to be here at some point in time in the future. Part of the issue I had in coming down to Fredericksburg in this particular location, as I've been there for quite a long time, is that the Collector Street intersection of Travis and Elk sits right in front of my house, really my front yard, and I had a house and 2 cottages, and pursuant to the ordinance that's in place now, I can only lease to one group. And consequently, I'm actually encouraged to lease to large groups because I can't lease to the cottages to couples and then have, let's say, 3 groups of 3 or 4 people rather than one group of 12 people. And it's not only harder on my house to do larger groups, but I think it also raises the issues of whether it even creates more problems. I hope it hasn't created many problems. I don't think it has, but at the end of the day, behind me is the compound of the historical cabins, but they're all zoned R2, and nothing is to suggest that even though it's a family compound today, that it might not be, a short-term rental or some sort of rental type situation in the future. No one knows, but as it sits, my house sits right in front of the intersection, which is people talk about noise. Nothing sounds like the big giant trucks that take off from that stop sign, or people with glass pack mufflers that take off from there. It goes on constantly, and I have that in front of me and the R2 compound behind me. So I just think that it's not, personally, I just don't think it sets up nicely for a family of 4 single-family residents. And so I'm really here to try to seek out the zoning so that I can utilize the property that is, the property that sits there, which is a house and 2 cottages. And so that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Somebody else? Come on down. Don't be bashful. This is your opportunity to visit. You'll have 3 minutes again.
Jennifer Eggleston. I live in town, 402 East Schubert, so a lot of us are neighbors. I believe there are 3 residents on my block from Washington to Elk. 22 years ago, there were, I don't know, all of us, maybe one B&B, which I use the term in the legitimate B&B term. Now from Elk down to Old Mill Settlement or the cemetery, I think there are existing 3 residents now. I'm opposed. I'm sorry the property was that way when you bought it. I think it could very easily be made into a single-family dwelling at some point, but I see it all the time. But honestly, we've got every truck that drives up Washington, every truck that drives up Schubert, and it's a noise fiasco. So there has to be another way that we can circumvent that. But adding another type of zoning in the middle of all of that with the historic district and all of the redistricting, I don't think that that's a good option. So, I mean, with the 3 of us that are here that live on that street, I don't understand why we would want to go that route. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go from public back to regular session.
I move we go from public hearing back into regular session.
Motion by Tom, second by Jared. Any further discussion? There is none. I'll motion. Vote, please. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. That was kind of a bum. Okay, moving then on to 7A. Ordinances and resolutions. Consider an approval of ordinance 2106, annexation and assigning a zoning classification of the multifamily residential R3 for approximately 10 acres of land out of E. Adam Survey number 123, abstract number 1714, located at 701 West Live Oak Street, Z2107. This will be the first of 2 readings. The city council may waive the second reading. Jason?
Yes, sir. Just to reiterate as earlier, this is existing property that was agreed to be annexed by the city council. They are not extending any utilities at this time. They are looking to connect to sewer, and the proposed subject tract shall be zoned R3 in accordance with the future land use plan and adjacent zoning.
Okay. Questions, Kathy? I'll start on the left.
No questions.
Jerry?
No,
Bobby?
No.
Tom?
No questions.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve and waive the second reading.
Second.
Have a motion by Bobby and a second by Tom. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes by 5. B, consider approval of ordinance 2021-07, request a change in the future land use plan from Employment Center EC to Commercial Center CC for approximately 17.461 acres of land out of the Thomas J. Steele Survey number 44, abstract number 646, located at 3255 South State Highway 16, Z2104, first of 2 readings. City council may waive the second reading. Jason?
Yes, sir. So this is the first of 3 requests that have to deal with the same project. One of them is annexation and zoning. I'll touch on that just a little bit as far as the proposed use goes. So they are looking to do an RV park or land use of campgrounds. So in order to do that, they need a zoning classification that would allow that. The applicant is requesting C2. That use is allowed by a CUP under that zoning district. However, the future land use in this area does not call this out as a commercial center, so if we were to annex this and bring it in, it would not meet the future land use plan. This area is called actually out as employment center. When you go through the definition of the future land use plan, this area is designed to be more of a manufacturing hub. So in 2006, when this plan was done, given its proximity to the airport, that was probably a use that was contemplated at the time. Given that the annexation would bring this in and the requested land use plan, or I'm sorry, the future land use plan would call for a manufactured zoning in this area. Staff has rethought that area. This is an entry corridor into the city. There's plenty of property along the airport for additional manufacturing uses around that area, and so we didn't see this as a hub for manufacturing moving forward. So that's why staff is supporting the change from employment center and manufacturing to the commercial center as requested by the applicant. applicant, and I'll be glad to answer any specific details you may have on that change request.
Thank you. Jerry?
No.
Bobby?
No questions.
Tom?
No questions at this time.
Kathy?
No questions.
I have none either. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I think you need to state it, Jerry.
Change from employment center to commercial center for approximately 17.461 acres of land outside Thomas Stell survey.
And waive the second reading?
Waive the second reading.
Second.
I have a motion by Jerry and a second by Bobby. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kathy, I didn't hear you.
Yes, she said.
Did you say?
Oh, I said aye.
Okay, I'm sorry. I want to be sure. Thank you. Okay, moving on now to 7C. Consider the approval of ordinance 2021-08, requests for voluntary annexation and requests for zoning of commercial C2 for approximately 17.461 acres of land out of the Thomas J. Steele Survey, number 44, abstract number 646, located at 3255 State Highway 16. Z2104. First of two readings, the city council may waive the second reading. Jason?
Yes, sir. So as you recall, the requested zoning on this was C2, and the annexation agreement, which was previously approved by council, allowed the applicant to request that zoning as part of that request. Any voluntary annexations that take place within the city, that ordinance and annexation agreement actually called for the applicant to extend city utilities at their own cost. Currently, there is water along State Highway 16, terminates probably approximately 500 feet away from the subject tract, so the applicant will be required to extend that utilities at their cost. And then the sewer is a little bit behind the property, closer to Boo's Lane, that is approximately going to be about 1,000 feet away from the property, give or take their path that they have to serve that. This would, again, also be built and constructed and dedicated to the city at the applicant's expense. The zoning is in line with the requested use as far as the annexation, and since council approved the future land use change from employment center to commercial, zoning designation of C2 would be allowed at this area. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have on the zoning change itself.
Thank you. Bobby?
No questions.
Tom?
So the cut, in order to have an RV park, it would require a cut.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is the development department satisfied with the documentation that the developer has submitted? Do they meet? Do you have all the plans that they're going to be using? Or do we need more time for those plans to get in? For the CUP and for the development, that might require us to maybe not waive the second hearing?
I think we do have enough information for the zoning request. The CUP is the next item. Currently, right now, their proposed site plan does meet the city's regulations on review as far as the entry corridor guidelines, the proposed zoning district, the setbacks, and the land uses. The only item that may change the site plan layout will have to come at a future meeting that goes to planning and zoning. Is currently they're negotiating with TxDOT on their entry for that property. So if there were to be, we have not received final approval from TxDOT at this point, but if there were to be any changes to that entry point location, that may affect the site plan, and so they would still have to go through that process. We have not also seen any of the plans engineering-wise as far as the utility extensions. That's probably something that the applicant wanted to wait to see if they could get that use before they contacted the engineer to finalize those routes. So from a staff perspective, we're comfortable with the site plan and the CUP request, but it would be contingent on final site plan approval and adherence to city code.
So, Council, I approve of the project, but I think it might be in our best interest to go ahead and hear this in a second reading in the future.
Any further, Kathy?
No, I don't have any comments.
Anything?
No.
Okay, well, Tom, if you want me to make a motion, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to have a second reading on ordinance 2021-07.
I have a motion by Tom, do I hear a second?
I'll go ahead and second that. We can take a look at it a little more.
Okay.
Daniel, do we need to have a motion for second reading?
A motion to take no action to set a second reading is an appropriate motion to make. If that's what the council wants to do. I'd recommend setting a date for the second reading. Additionally, under the zoning ordinance, we've got some timelines that you have to meet as far as when you take action.
Well, that's the question I had, is that with the timeline, if we have the second reading of this at the next meeting, does that give the applicant time to get things in, and are we still within the applicant's timeline?
Since we're dependent on TxDOT for that response, I don't know that another week will give us the time that we need. Ultimately, from a staff perspective, the annexation and zoning would be beneficial to the community regardless of the project. And so really, I think the big question comes on the CUP side. Is council comfortable with the RV project itself? And again, as long as they're not asking for any variances to the city codes.
And they're not?
Support, no, sir. Not.
And they're paying for all the utility extensions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'll withdraw my comment about the second reading if council wants to pass it, to move it forward.
Then I'll make a motion to move to approve as presented and waive the second reading.
I'll second.
Okay.
I have a motion by Bobby and a second by Kathy. Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, before we move on to 7D, I missed two people who wanted to speak in public comment, and I apologize. And that would be Paulette Graham and Teresa Walsh. I think you two wanted to speak to the, oh, you spoke to the family then?
Yeah.
Okay, I surely didn't want to exclude you guys. Thank you. Okay.
Mayor, I recommend we move to item 8A, since it's the same property, same request. We will go ahead and act on 8A at this time.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you, Ken. Moving on to 8A then, consider approval of conditional use permit per section 5.400 to allow land use of the campgrounds for approximately 17.461 acres out of the land of Thomas J. Steele Survey number 44, abstract number 646, located at 3255 South State Highway 16, Z2104. Jason, you have any further comments on that?
Yes, so just a little more detail on that for you and the public here. This RV campsite is looking at about 145 RV slips with additional 12 cabins that could be rented. They also have pools, pavilions, and a facility for dining. So this will be a full-service RV park. We'll be glad to answer any other questions you have. But again, this proposed site plan that you see on the TV does meet the city's requirements per the zoning code and the entry corridor design guidelines. So outside of the entrance off of TxDOT, which we will see during the engineering and construction phase of the project, we will review those plans. Should something change that would drastically alter this layout, we could bring this CUP back to you at a later date. But at this point, staff does not see any need for that. We feel comfortable with the CUP request as presented. Great.
Thank you. Tom?
I move that we approve conditional use permit per section 5400 to allow the land use of the campgrounds on 17.46 acres of the Thomas Sewell Survey number 44, located at 3255 State Highway 16 South.
Second.
We have a motion by Tom, second by Bobby. Did
Well, I
anyone
sure
else?
hope all these people can, that are developing these areas, I hope they can make it. They got that big one going out Cherry Springs out there too, a high-end RV park, and every time you turn around, you got another 100 to 150 of these things going up, and, isn't there a max somewhere?
All it takes is money.
We're all diminishing
Yeah, it only
returns.
takes money, but, geez.
Last one in is the first one out. Yeah, okay. We have a motion. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? There is none. Motion carries. Moving to 7D. Consider the approval of ordinance 2021-09, request by Joseph Simmons to consider a zoning change from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Mixed Residential in a property located at 305 North Elk Street and at 502 and at 506 East Schubert Street. Z2106. First of two readings. The city council may waive the second reading. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. So the request we have today is a zoning change from R1 to R2. If you can see the subject area on the map, this is the southeast intersection of Travis and Elk Street. The applicant, as stated earlier in the public hearing, is trying to take full advantage of the city's ordinances in order to do an STR unit there or additional units than what he currently has permitted. Staff began to look at this issue. I believe this project may have come before council late last year, November, December timeframe. At that point, it was just the two parcels on the very corner fronting Elk Street, and it did not include the adjacent parcel between those two and the adjacent R2 zoning. So the applicant did get that landowner to come in and be part of this request. So when we looked at that, we saw an opportunity where this would be an increase from R1 to R2. It would allow some additional density on the proposed STR units that the applicant would like to utilize, as well as would bring the zoning under one block into conformity with this project. We also looked again at the future land use plan. There's having to change that from low density residential to medium density residential were some of the issues that we considered as well. Given the natural progression and growth of the city, we look at the community and we see how it has changed and how it is growing and will continue to grow over the next several years, moving from 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 and possibly 12,000. We have not seen the new census numbers yet. What that growth is going to do is going to provide a lot of opportunities for folks to move to this community. It's also going to provide or dictate a need to look at trying to find areas close to central downtown where we can increase densities without having to kind of sprawl out and move into further areas and construct new water lines, sewer lines. So this request provided an opportunity to increase the density in the area. Again, the land use proposed is an existing use. They would like to increase that, given its proximity to, as we said, the Nimitz and CBD district. Staff could support this change, given that would bring that block into one whole singular zoning district and land use category. So there's a lot of moving parts on this request, and so I can answer any of those questions you may have at this time.
Thank you.
I would like to mention that the protest map, let me turn this over. If you look at the protest map, the orange properties were shown as no reply, no response. The red area protest, those are the ones that are against this, and this does bring this over the 20% threshold required for this to pass. It would take a supermajority of the council vote at this time.
Okay, so the question I have, I guess for Daniel, the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended. And so what kind of a majority would it take for the council to overturn the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission?
It has no effect. That only applies if P&Z decides to deny an application or recommend denial.
Okay.
For you to overturn a denial, you would need a supermajority.
Okay.
But in this case, because of the protest, you still need the supermajority to approve it.
Okay, a supermajority to approve.
Three-fourths of the council members, and if we've got a full quorum, you'll need 4 out of 5 to approve it. Mayor, I have 2 other comments if I may. The first is on page 87 is the ordinance for this item, and we drafted that last week. And when it was prepared, we had not reached that threshold for the protest provision yet. So the ordinance currently reads in the 4th whereas paragraph, the 4th recital paragraph, it states there was not a protest. The percentage did not reach that threshold for a protest yet. So that's changed since this was prepared and published. So we will have to amend that paragraph to reflect that that threshold has been met now. The second comment is items 7D and 7E, 7 Delta and 7 Echo on the agenda, both apply to the same, essentially to the same application. It's actually my preference that the council takes action on item 7E first, which is the land use change. It's sort of a technical issue, but the land use needs to be appropriate before you can change the zoning to that requested zoning. So my preference would be for the council to take action on item 7E first and then 7D after, if the council is going to approve either of those items.
And Daniel, am I correct that both items would have to pass in order to initiate a zoning change?
Well, you would not be able to do the zoning change if the land use plan was not approved first. Land use change is not approved. Is that correct, Jason?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So council, go to E, based on council's recommendation.
Yes.
That's what we'll do. Consider, we're going to go down to E then. Consider the approval of ordinance 2021-10 requested by Joseph Simmons to consider adopting a change in the comprehensive plan of the city of Fredericksburg, specifically in the land use map on property located at 305 North Elk Street and 502 and 506 East Shubert Street, changing said property from low density residential to medium density residential, providing that the change become a part of the comprehensive plan and providing for an effective date, Z2106, first of two readings. City council may waive second reading. Jason?
Yes, sir. So if you can see on the screen, this is the image of the future land use plan in the area. It's very similar to the zoning. This is medium density residential along the eastern portion of the tract, and then the subject tracts are low density residential, highlighted in red. So again, looking at the zoning change request, we looked at the land use. Obviously, that would need to be changed prior. Again, given the proximity to Central Business District, the Nimitz, and the Pacific War Museum, staff does see this area as a possible area to increase a little bit of density in the downtown area. So that's why staff supported the change from medium density to low density, or I'm sorry, from low density to medium density residential.
Jason, you said red. I'm sorry. I'm sort of color ignorant.
I'm sorry.
I don't see it.
It's yellow. There's a red outline with a crosshatch.
Oh, okay.
So that's, I apologize, Mary, you did let me know about that, so.
Thank you. Questions?
If I may, Mayor,
Please.
could you put that map back up there, please?
The future land use or the zoning?
Yes, the one that you just had up there, the land use map.
I will,
Okay. I think it's good for everyone to have some background on this area. Back in 2010, when I was mayor, it was either in 2010 or 2011. We had a public hearing. If you look at the orange, the two orange rectangles, the one to the south side of Schubert, and the one to the north side of Schubert. The one to the north side of Schubert is the SAS compound, which is a private, I guess it's a private corporate retreat. I can't remember when the SAS compound was created, but I've lived in the community for 45 years. As far as I know, that compound's been there for a long time. I do know that the property on the south side of Schubert Street, that property right there, was changed from R1 to R2 for a project that was titled the Cormier. It was the Cormier. Mr. Cormier came in and he was going to develop a townhouse or condominium project. And at that time it was R1. During he came in with at the time that another developer came in for the Carriage Park project that is now at Muller and Longhorn Street. The city council approved both of these projects they were termed as affordable housing projects at the time. Mr. Cormier's project, he was saying, well, we're going to be able to put some condominiums on the ground for $180,000. And I'm sure wish that he was here now with his $180,000 condos. But just to give some idea there that piece of property was R1. That piece of property was low-density residential until it was changed by the city council in 2011 for a condo complex. So what we have here is, because we changed it in 2011, we changed that map, okay? And what's on the piece of property right now are single-family residences. There's a big open spot at the end next to the cemetery. I don't think that's an expansion of the cemetery, but you never know. But as far as I know, no high density is going in there, or has been planned for that. So when we talk about the land use, is it my turn now to? Okay, I'll just talk about what I think about this at this point. The only reason for this request for zoning change to R2 is to allow the applicant to be able to rent all three properties he owns as short-term rentals, which is not allowed with the current R1 zoning designation. Mr. Simmons should have understood the zoning restrictions and limitations on the property when he purchased it in 2014. The land next to the Nimitz Combat Zone on the south side of Schubert Street was rezoned from R1 to R2, as I said, in 2010 or 2011, because the owner wanted to develop affordable condominium townhouse project. That never happened, but the zoning remained. With the change to R2 zoning, Mr. Simmons could construct anything allowable in an R2 zoning district, such as apartments. While unlikely, it is allowable and it could happen. I believe we should be mindful of the neighbors who live there year-round, and we should strive to preserve our R1 neighborhoods. I'm not in favor of changing the zoning classification from R1 to R2 and the land use designation from low density residential to medium density residential. And if you want to see a collector street, come sit on my front porch on Friendship Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. We'll just keep coming this way. Bobby?
I would have to agree with Tom. I have a fear of losing our neighborhoods, and I've stated that during my campaign. There are numerous residential residences around this location. I have several friends in that neighborhood, and I understand Mr. Simmons' position, but I believe that it still needs to maintain the R1 designation. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry?
I agree with Bobby and Tom. I think we need to keep our R1s, and I'd like to see it stay.
Kathy?
I agree with all of them. I want to just add a couple things. The property that Tom was talking about that was changed from R1 to R2 is currently 3 single-family homes with no B&Bs. The one just west of those 3 is designated as a historic site, which was, and an old Sunday house that's been restored and it is now a B&B, but the owners built a house behind it where they live. And then the one to the east of that is R1, and both of those are R1s. So that there are no R2 B&Bs outside of the applicant's home structures, except maybe next door there might be a rental. I'm not sure how that's set up. But next week, the development office is hosting open meeting for the public to speak on the STR issue. And I believe that is probably the beginning of the council's review of this issue overall. Kent, you said at some meeting prior to my coming on the council that we would be taking a look at the STR ordinance, getting public input, and probably making overall decision on this issue by the end of the summer. So I think we're premature to make any changes. I wouldn't recommend we make any changes at this time without going through that process. So I would agree with the other comments.
Thank you, Kathy. I agree, but I got a bit of a different angle on it. You know, I was on planning and zoning 10 years ago, and at that time, this was possibly going to be something that probably would have been passed by city council, but times have changed. We're seeing an encroachment of more and more folks turning, and I'm not against short-term rentals, be sure that's clear, but we're encroaching in residential neighborhoods and pressing real residential neighborhoods to a brink. I will share with you that I'm not in favor of this, and it's just something that I think we're eroding our residential neighborhoods. I'm sorry the zoning is not appropriate for what Mr. Simmons would like to do. If he had been here 10 or 12, 13 years ago, this probably would have been a strong possibility, but times have changed. Our neighborhoods are eroding, and if this is something we can do to protect the families that are still there, I'm going to be in full agreement with what's been said. Thank you.
Mayor, I make a motion to deny ordinance 2021-10, request by Justice Simmons to change the comprehensive plan of the city of Fredericksburg at 305 North Elk and 502, 506 East Schubert Street, changing said property from low density residential to medium density residential.
We have a motion by Tom. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And I waive the second hearing.
And he's waiving the second hearing.
Second that.
Okay. And a motion by Tom and a second by Kathy. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay. So we don't need to go back to 7D, correct, Daniel?
I would recommend action on 7D also.
I'm sorry?
I would recommend action on 7D also.
Okay, what kind of, denying it? Is
I can,
if that's the motion, I would take it?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to deny the request 2021-09 to change from R1 single-family residential to R2 mixed residential, the property on 305 North Elk and 502, 506 East Schubert, Z2106, and to waive the second reading.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Tom and a second by Kathy. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Moving down to 9F.
7F.
I'm sorry?
7F.
I mean 7, I'm sorry, I got it scratched out up there, I can't see my 7 anymore. 7F, I apologize. Consider the approval of Resolution 20-2107, or authorizing the use.
Mayor, we were going to, you can read it if you want, but this was Adam we're going to address, come back to after executive session.
Oh, I'm sorry, okie dokie, we'll move on. Thank you, Daniel. Going to 8B. Consider the approval of conditional use permit per section 5.400 for condominium residential use on a C1 zone property located at 815 Wellness Court, Z2105. Jason?
What'd you say? Z2105?
Yep.
We're at 8A?
8B.
8B.
We did A. We did A.
Oh, wellness court.
We did A already.
Okay, well,
Good
means
deal.
I listen.
Very good. That's a good thing. Jason?
Almost.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So yes, this is a request for a conditional use permit on Wellness Court. I will bring up the map and show you the location on that property. This is the subdivision here. You can see the subject property is at the end of the cul-de-sac in this crosshatched area. This is where the applicant is looking at developing a condominium project. We'll scroll down and get into the proposed site plan. It is a little bit large, so I will try and go through all of this. I may have to scroll in and out or zoom in so you can see the entirety of the situation. But the applicant is looking at developing 8 different units. They would theoretically control this. I believe this is going to be kind of a family compound. They have a large family. They will be coming in, meeting. They had a hard time, I guess, finding places to accommodate their needs, so that they decided that possibly they would build this. So they are asking for the condominium regime because at some point in the future, they may sell off some additional units or structures. At that point, when they do that, that is a subdivision of land, and they would have to come back and file a condo plat. Again, that would be handled at a different date. But currently, they're looking at 3 7-bedroom units and then an additional 4 units with 4 bedrooms each. So we're looking at 41 units bedroom total on this property. They originally provided 32 spaces in parking, and that was with the 8 additional that were optional that was sent to P&Z. Those 8 spaces you can see down here on this green arrow. They were not on the original site plan, but the applicant said that they would put those in. During the discussion at P&Z, there was a discussion if these do sell off, can they become short-term rentals? Obviously, that may how they begin to be utilized when the owners are not occupying those structures. So staff's original condition was that they look to provide additional parking where possible. During the course of the discussion, P&Z determined that they would require the applicant to meet the parking regulations at 100%, so it would be one parking space per bedroom at this point. So the applicant has agreed to that, and we have not seen the updated site plan at this point, but that will be approved with any motions you guys make at this point. So there's a lot of moving pieces on this. This is a large project, so I'll be glad to answer any specific questions you have on the development, and the architect is here as well.
Thank you. I'll start with Bobby.
Whitney, do you have the amended site plan with you?
I have my little small version, but I can talk through it. It's actually, if you'll pull up the site plan, I'll brief. I'll come to the speaker. So my name is Whitney Kuh. As I mentioned earlier, I am with Mustard Design Architects. I can briefly let y'all know we have provided an amended site plan that was sent to the city late last week, hoping to get it in for tonight's meeting, but we have been able to accommodate the 1-to-1 ratio per bedroom per parking space for the site. And the owners have if you want to pull that up, I can talk about that if you'd like to understand how we're achieving that, because it is a little bit different than the typical ordinance, as we are using what's called a stacked space requirement to meet part of that. If you'll excuse me. So each driveway for each dedicated unit, which will be part of the condo plat that Jason spoke about, can accommodate 3 vehicular spaces per driveway. And based on our conversations with P&Z, because each driveway is dedicated to a house, thus it's essentially an internal coordination of how those vehicles are moved around or otherwise. It doesn't create an undue burden on another unit. So they have allowed us to provide the use of stacked spaces as part of our overall parking count. So we have 3 spaces per unit, and then we've actually added 2 spaces here at the end of the fire lane. And then we've maxed out for, I believe, 14 spaces along the entry drive here. That's to be able to allow an outdoor common area for the guests to be able to utilize in adjacency to the pavilion as well. So we have been able to accommodate the 1-to-1 ratio requested from P&Z.
That parking means it just drive straight in, you got 3
Yes,
cars
sir.
lined up?
Yes, sir.
What if somebody wants to leave and,
Again, that's an internal coordination between the occupants that are occupying the same unit at the same time. So as Jason mentioned, our clients have large families, so it would be an internal discussion between aunt and uncle or vice versa to coordinate the roundabout of parking situations. But we are able, so I would like to point out to the council that per the zoning ordinance, we are actually only required 16 spaces for the entire site, 2 spaces per unit. We are providing well more than double that on this site and are trying to do our best to accommodate what we are understanding as parking considerations for all of our sites within the facility. This is located at the end of a cul-de-sac with 2 other short-term rental and multifamily types of facilities to the south of the project, and essentially we're not in a residential subsetting where parking considerations might be more difficult. And we are in a gated community that is perimeterly fenced as well.
but you were saying that they might sell off some of the condos eventually then.
Yes, sir.
So then, you watch Judge Judy on TV? Well, boy, people get mad at each other when they can't get out, or they,
Again, that's part of the condo plat that we have discussed. That's one of the things we talked with Jason and his staff. As part of the HOA requirements is that the owners would mandate as part of their condo purchase that they are only required up to 3 vehicles or 4 vehicles, whatever could be accommodated on the site per unit and no more. And again, we're more than over double what is required. So we feel like we are more than adequately providing appropriate parking within our site grounds.
you can't put an angle parking.
There's no room.
Same number?
No.
So this is actually coming to y'all as a multifamily development first, and the condo application as a request for the clients to have the ability to manage the property differently so that, they're not looking to be lessees or renters from afar. So they're looking for the opportunity in the future, if they so choose, to do this as a condo application for financial reasons, not as a short-term rental option. That would be 3rd or 4th on the list.
But let's assume that someone buys a unit, one unit has 7 bedrooms.
Yes, ma'am.
And wants to use it as an STR.
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, it would be selling a party project.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Well, if you have 7 bedrooms,
yes, ma'am.
That's 14 people at probably 7 to 14 people.
And we have no control over how people want to utilize their houses, but they could also sell it to a family who has 5 children.
Right.
So I mean, that's their goal. That's how they're looking at it. That's how they brought that project to me. Obviously, yes, you are correct. If they were to sell it off, we have no control over
I'm
how
not
the next
objecting, I'm just pointing out.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
It sounds.
And again, we have provided significantly more parking than is standard required in an effort to try to meet the request of both the city and the P&Z ordinance by providing a 1-to-1 ratio for parking to bedroom. Any other questions?
I'm glad to hear that. As you know, I can't get enough of this stuff, so I had to go to planning and zoning meeting. I think one of the fears is that in the future, when the family's not using it, the idea is, we've got an economic, we have an economic asset here, so how do we maximize the economic asset? And that's, let's STR it while we're not using it. I applaud you for putting the additional parking. I think one of the issues that we have with the STRs, we're not talking about an STR project here, but we need to be cognizant that in the future, it could become one. And if it did, there is nowhere near the amount of parking. And so the only way that we could get around that is to paint all the interior curbs red. and have no street parking at all.
We actually are required to do that. Our driveway is only 20 feet wide, so by default, we are required to paint that and call that a fire lane and not allow any street parking.
So there is no on-street parking at all.
That is correct.
So if there, in the future, if there is a modification to the STR ordinances that require parking, that require a certain number of parking spaces for, per unit, whatever, if a unit is 2 people.
Yes, sir.
Then this would be maxed out by the number, by the, how many total parking spaces? Are there 43?
We have 43, which is actually 2 more than the number of bedrooms that we currently have.
Okay, so good, the staff didn't make, I wasn't clear that there's no parking in the cul-de-sac at all.
Well, not in the cul-de-sac. So the cul-de-sac is still a public street. So this would be on our private driveway within our site.
Yeah, we're on site.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because you have a cul-de-sac at the end of your street too, don't you?
We have a hammerhead, yes, sir.
Hammerhead, okay. Hammerhead, cul-de-sac, jellyfish, shrimp, okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. You all hit them all. I will make one comment, though. Parking spaces, you've met the criteria, but not to take this personally, but I have a big pickup. Parking spaces aren't convenient for people with pickups. And I know you shrink them down to like Volkswagens or something, so I'm usually parking over both stripes. So anyway, but I appreciate you accommodating as many parking spaces as you can. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve as presented.
Have a motion by Bobby, second by Tom. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to 8C. Consider the selection of Mayor Pro Tem. Kent?
Okay, Mayor and members of the council, our city charter requires that the first council meeting following election, that the council appoints a mayor pro tem among your membership, and that individual serves for 1 year until the next election. And the responsibilities of the mayor pro tem are to serve in the mayor's absence. And so at this point, the council needs to open this up for either a motion or nomination for mayor pro tem.
Council?
I move to appoint Tom Musselman as mayor pro tem.
I have a motion by Jerry. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second by Kathy. Any further discussion? There being
What's the pay?
twice what you're making.
Yes.
Which is not enough. Now, anyway, I have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Motion carries. Moving on to 8D, consider announcement of the mayor's appointment and assignments for the city council members. And I want to thank every one of y'all for graciously accepting these.
You're welcome.
We're going to have Kathy O'Neill is going to be representing us on the Chamber of Commerce and the Relief Route Task Force. Councilman Bobby Watson is going to do EDC, Relief Route Task Force, and Airport Advisory Committee. Councilman Jerry Luckenbaum, Mark Potts Redevelopment Commission in Gillespie County. And Councilman Tom Musselman, CVB, and the FISD. So I appreciate you all accepting those positions and looking forward to y'all's reports.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's good. 5-0. City manager or city council. Whoa, wait a minute, guys. Okay, number 9C. Now, well, we have someone who wants to talk to 9C, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, city manager report A.
Hey, what about AD?
Oh, did I miss D?
Yeah,
Okay.
council location.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
we need that. Consider D?
E.
8E.
E, location of city council and board meeting.
I marked it off already. Okay, thank you. Consider, discuss, take appropriate action regarding meeting location with the city council and board meetings. I'm sorry, Kent, I missed that one.
Mayor and council, as you are well aware, a number of months ago, you agreed to move our city council meetings to this location during the months of let's see, March, April, and May. for 3 months, not only city council, but all other city advisory committees. At this point, the council needs to discuss and decide where you want meetings starting in June. And we may have one meeting of the planning, well, whatever you decide. I think Jason's already put a public notice out that one of his meetings will be here at the Rockbox, is that right?
Yes, so we did have some notice deadlines prior to this meeting, so we went ahead and scheduled the next P&Z meeting on June 7th for the Rockbox location here. We did not notice on the council hearing for that meeting, so we will renotice if you choose to make a change in that location.
So there's basically two options available for the council. One is to continue meeting here at the Rockbox, or the second option is to move back to the Law Enforcement Center. I think the owners of the Rockbox have been very gracious in allowing us to meet here. They're willing to continue that, allowing us to use this facility. It runs us somewhere around $200 to $250 per meeting to meet here. Of course, we meet at the Law Enforcement Center and there's no charge. As far as staff is concerned, we have no preference or recommendation on this. The sound and video equipment that we've recently purchased is completely portable, so we can use at either location. And we also will be able to continue to stream our meetings at either location. So at this point, we'll be glad to respond to any questions that you might have or entertain a motion on where the council would like to meet and for what period of time you would like to have that meeting location.
Let me start with Jerry. Comments?
Oh, I mean, this is a great place. I mean, you can't ask for anything nicer than this here. I don't have a problem with either place. This is a nice place. We got the equipment and we can use it out there. I don't know, are we interfering with anything with the Rockbox? Are they, with the summer coming on, are they going to start?
No, she isn't. So far, there hadn't been any interference with either the city council, planning and zoning commission, or the historic review board. They don't have any events that conflict with our meeting schedule.
Is this our equipment here?
No, we purchased this equipment with the CARES fund.
Oh, okay.
The only reservation I have about going back to LEC, which I think we should do, is the sound quality in the audience. Because in the past, if we weren't speaking directly into the microphone, it was hard to hear in the back.
I think that we could probably alleviate that problem by putting speakers in the back of the room.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think one of the issues here now is that we're spending about $1,000 a month here. And so the question I would have for Eric and city staff is, at the LEC, would we leave the equipment out or leave the infrastructure for the equipment out and then lock up everything? Like, would we have to put everything up the way it is?
No, we regardless of location, we always lock we'll have a room there, we'll lock the equipment up, and we have a room here, we lock it up.
Okay, so like all the cabling that's on the ground, we would pull that up every day, or just, because that's the expensive stuff right there. Okay. So I'm fine with.
There is an additional setup here when we set up the tables. Right. Of course, we have to take them down because KK has performances at the Law Enforcement Center. We don't have that set up and take down.
Kathy?
My preference is to move back to the LEC. I think it's a more appropriate venue for a city council meeting. This is the first time I've sat on this side of the meeting room. Sitting on the other side, it seems like a theater, which it is, and it's a good thing. But it just, I think it's a more appropriate venue over there. I understand the reason that we even moved here was because of the COVID crisis, and there could be more separation from people attending. So that's where I'm heading.
Is that a motion?
Make a motion that we move meetings back to the Law Enforcement Center.
You have any comment?
that a motion?
Yes.
We have a motion by Kathy and a second by Jerry.
And Mayor, this motion does pass. We have 3 weeks until the next council meeting. We'll work to address Tom's concerns and maybe have a kind of a mock meeting out there and check the sound quality. And if we need to purchase a couple of speakers, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
We have 3 weeks to work through those kind of issues. So.
Yeah.
What does Eric say? I'm sorry.
That's fine. Any further discussion? Yes, there is. I want to say, this has been a wonderful venue for us under the circumstances of which we had to provide communication to the public. I'm in favor of moving back to the LEC for that and saving that money that I think can be better spent, for our citizens and parks and anything else we might want to have in a budget. So I'm in favor of that as well. So we have a motion on the table to move back to the LEC. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0. So that's where we're heading, boys and girls. Sam, be sure you get that in the paper.
And on the daily update.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm back on track. Number 9, City Council Workshop Session, May 19th. Kent?
Hey, Mayor and Council, I think you're well aware, the day after tomorrow, Wednesday, we will have the next City Council work session. That is a public meeting. If every of our citizens would like to show up, we'll start about 8:30 at the Cardinal Room at Lady Bird Golf Course. One reason we wanted to have the meeting out there is we've made a number of improvements to that facility over the last couple of months. It was damaged with a water leak during the storm. And so I know Chris is very proud of the improvements we've made out there, and we'll be able to show off those improvements before and during our meeting. So we have 4 items on the agenda that the council's discussed, and we will then adjourn prior to the noon time, and we welcome everybody's involvement in the discussion. No action is taken at our work sessions. This is just intended to give staff direction on some of the important issues facing the city. Some of the items will be brought back to the council in June for action if the council directs us to add them to a future agenda. So we're looking forward to the council's input during the meeting on Wednesday. Each of you should have received your packet from Shelley last week, and if you have any questions prior to the work session, make sure you give us a call.
Kent, can you name the items that we're going to be at the workshop?
So we're going to, first off, talk about the City Council Rules of Procedure. Normally, after each election, the council revisits their rules of procedure. This is where it governs the procedures of their meetings, passing of ordinances, and just the way they basically the city council operates. So the council will be discussing whether or not you want to make any changes to those rules of procedure. The second item is to discuss the FISD middle school campus and the possibility of reusing some of the facilities on the current campus if the bond election were to pass in November. We have a couple of city representatives are on a committee that's looking at that, and I think at this point we just need some direction from the council. Is this something we want to take a serious look at? Do we see some possibilities over there in terms of office space and recreational space? And so, again, before we got too far down the road on talking to FISD, we wanted to get council's input to make sure that we're following your direction. The third item is the mid-year budget amendments. Laura has prepared a listing of the budget amendments based upon our meetings with each department. And the list is pretty lengthy this year because of the additional expenses from COVID and the recent storm we had. And so we'll discuss those budget amendments. Plus, there's some new items that we're recommending the council consider adding to the budget that we deleted from the budget last year because of some restrictions that we had on from in terms of COVID revenue from the COVID pandemic and so forth. So we want to see the council wants to add those items to the budget at this point in time. One of the big items, of course, is a comprehensive plan, and we can certainly add it to the budget. You'll see we have the money available if the council wants to do that, or we can wait to next year's budget and add the comprehensive plan at that time. The last item is to begin talking about the new budget for 2022. and talk about some of the council's priorities for next year's budget, and also a preliminary budget schedule. We like to try to work around vacations that the council may be planning this summer. So take a look. We had a draft schedule in your packet. Take a look at that, and if you have any changes that you want to make there, we'll be glad to do that at the work session on Wednesday. So that's all we have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Going on to 9B, short-term rentals, public listening session, May 25th.
Okay, we pretty well talked about this. Again, we welcome the public this coming Tuesday, I say a week from tomorrow, May 25th, and that is at the Pioneer Pavilion, 11 to 2 and 3 to 6. And in advance of that, we have a survey that we have sent out to both STR owners and rental agencies, but we also sent it out to citizens, neighbors, and hopefully we'll get a lot of input on the survey as well as the public listing sessions on May 25th. So that's all we had on that, unless y'all have any questions.
Okay, any questions? We do have a, go ahead, you have a question?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. We do have a, Timothy Riley is asked to speak to item 9C.
Who's this guy?
Yeah.
3 minutes.
There we go. We're stepping it up, Mr. Lugenbach. Okay, yes, redesign the city website. Looking forward to what Mr. Myers is about to say. Of course, a lot of these meetings I include what I talk about when it comes to Zoom and other, 2022 technologies, these kinds of things. It's obviously very important that our city website gets updated. It's terrible. I mean, the newspaper just did some great updates. They're all like fully digital and have a whole new interface, and it takes a lot to do that. I think the goal was this redesign the city website. Was that supposed to be this last January or something? We're just a little behind on it. It takes a long time, but it's very important, and it's just the first step. I feel like the city, in general, all of us, we check one box off. We think that's enough. So hopefully, this website unveiling will change the interface. Will encourage more younger people to sign up and do their due diligence, but it is just the first step, and hopefully we can continue to add more as we see technology help us accomplish our goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kent?
Okay, so once again, the website has been under redesign for about a year now, and on June 1st, we will be unveiling the newly renovated city website, that Lee Foggy has been coordinating that project with our website host, who is Civic Plus. And I think based upon she introduced the changes to our department heads last week, and it got rave reviews from them on the redesign. So hopefully we'll get the same input reaction from the council and the public. We also, in response to Timothy's question or concerns, we want to drive more traffic to our website. We feel like it has a lot of good information on there, and we want to try to enhance the ability of people to use our website. And the reason we do that, we think that a lot of the questions that the public have, all they need to do is access the website, and they can get response to those questions rather than call one of us or call the receptionist. So we're going to do a kind of a marketing campaign with our new website to try to get more and more people to use that as a source of information on the city. So look forward to that. June 1st will be the official kickoff date for that, and we'll look forward to comments that we get from the public and the council.
Thank you. 9D, broadband services.
Okay, broadband services, I wanted to remind the city council that this was one of the performance goals that you set for me this year, and we've actually made quite a bit of progress last couple of months in a partnership effort between the city, the Chamber of Commerce, and the EDC. We've had probably about 7 different meetings with providers, local providers of broadband services, and we've also had just kind of separate meetings involving the 3 organizations. This effort will require a partnership, and we started that with the city chamber and EDC. But in the coming months, we want to expand that partnership because this will have a direct benefit of other organizations that we want to get involved, and that includes Central Texas Electric, the county, Hill Country Memorial Hospital, FISD, and just today we found out that there could be some assistance from LCRA for this effort, so we want to involve them in this partnership effort. The other positive news that we have is we have received word that we're going to receive about $2.5 million for federal relief funds, and one of the projects that is allowed to be used for this funding is expansion of broadband services. So we're talking about the possibility, again, a lot of this is subject to approval by the council, of using some of that money for the broadband program that we're discussing. Some of the broadband improvements are needed in the county. We talked to Jerry Luckenbach, and the mayor and I talked a little bit to Judge Strayer and Commissioner Hsu last week about broadband services, possibly expanding them to some of the county areas, like out to Harper School, and they seem to be welcome. They would welcome the opportunity to understand more about what we're doing and support our efforts. Eric has created a very preliminary proposal on how we can enhance broadband services here in the city. That's still being discussed between the chamber and EDC, but that could be a proposal that we'll be bringing forward to the council here in the next probably 60 days or so. So we are making a lot of progress on that, and the key again is the partnership that we have and that we will be expanding during the next couple of months. So we're excited about that, and particularly excited about the fact that there could be some money available for both the city and the county to accomplish this.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10, we do have a member of the committee, folks out there. Tom Marshall would like to speak to this. Yep. It's public. 3 minutes, Tom. You know the routine.
Oh, I do. My name's Tom Marshall. My residence is 208 Beverly Drive. My comment about future consideration concerns our newspaper. A couple of weeks ago, there was an editorial in there that raised the question about the greater good. My experience and my education about the greater good says we're kind of using some doublespeak here. Now, I fully recognize and accept the fact that the newspaper has the right to publish anything that they choose. However, when a counter angle is proposed and not printed, I begin to get a little concerned. Let me read for you a letter to the editor.
Tom?
Yes?
Don't mean it. What does this have to do with our agenda, the upcoming agenda? Is there a point to that?
Okay, my point is possible consideration of a censure of the newspaper.
Of a what?
A censorship of the newspaper.
Censorship.
Okay.
Are you talking about censorship by the city of Fredericksburg of a newspaper, or
basically what I'm saying.
Censure. So you're asking for the city of Fredericksburg to have an official criticism of a local media outlet?
Correct.
Okay. Under, I would ask for and our city attorney to say if this is even within the purview of the city council.
May I finish my comment and then kind of, I understand your question. I think I understand some of your question, but I'm going to address some of that.
And the clock did stop for you, so you didn't run out of time. I'll let you finish up, but I was just curious where the point was.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a choice, at least for now. I have a feeling that promoting the greater good is a sign that you are woke, but it really means that you're ignorant of the lessons of history. You can wake up and realize the greater good philosophy has been tried and failed many times, leaving a wake of death, destruction, and despair in its path. The hero of the greater good, Karl Marx, was no hero just a villain. At least that would be the opinion of the millions who died as a result of his philosophy in the Soviet Union. But alas, some today apparently see him as a hero still. Our country is founded on the principle that humans have inalienable rights, meaning that any greater good must be achieved while respecting those rights. In recent history, our inalienable rights have been chipped away, culminating in a massive trampling this past year. Now there is a coercive effort for people to participate in a medical experiment. Whether or not anyone chooses to participate in that experiment is a choice to be made by the individual and their medical advisors. The government and the media should provide information on all aspects of any such experiment, minus any coercion to participate. And yes, advertising by city signs is a form of coercion. There are many paths. Healthy living and the greater good is best served with liberty maintained during that pursuit.
Time's up, Tom. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Okay. Daniel, do you want to address that now, or you want to wait until you have proper time to give it some thought?
I'm not really going to be able to give you a good answer off the top of my head on that issue.
Yeah.
And really, so I think that if the council wants to discuss anything, it's going to have to be limited to whether you want to put this on a future agenda. Alternatively, the council's rules of procedure, dictate who controls the agenda and who puts items on the agenda. So that could even be done by members of the council without having to take formal action on it right now.
Okay, thank you.
So Mayor, if I could proceed with the report on the next agenda.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so next agenda, we may have some action items related to the work session on Wednesday. For example, if the council decides to amend your rules of procedure, you would actually consider action on that at the next council meeting, June 7th. And then the budget amendments would need to be on your June 7th agenda for approval. One of the highlights that we're for the next meeting is the report by Paul Tiber and Clinton Bailey on the current situation with our water supply and an update on our conservation regulations. So we've got that scheduled. We also have scheduled a report on our historic district guidelines. This is basically a report on the public input that we've had and where we are on the guidelines. We are at the point where we're ready for council to consider formal action on those at your June 21st meeting. So we also have recently received a grant for the pedestrian bridge on South Llano Street, and we may bring that forward to the council at your next meeting. I'm not sure about that item, but we've got it listed here for right now. So that's what we have for June 7th. Again, that's 3 weeks from tonight because we have 5 Mondays in May. Okay? And that will be at the Law Enforcement Center. June, any questions on that?
No.
Okay, June 21st, we will have the historic district guidelines for your formal consideration, it looks like. Assuming, I guess, Daniel, assuming we have those ready for when your standpoint. Have you already prepared most of those, Daniel, or have we started? I didn't know.
Which item are you referring to? The historic guidelines?
Yeah.
Well, we will have an ordinance to accompany that whenever it's brought to council. So I don't know where Development Services is in the guidelines side of it. If it's so, you'd have to check with Jason or Anna on that issue.
So we did receive some last minute feedback. We're still going through. We do want to bring that to council. We have not moved forward with any amendments to that ordinance yet. We'll need to get with you. I think our concern is if anything changes based on council's determination, or if we just kind of proceed with this is the guideline, this is the document will be adopted as is, and then we can work out issues when we present to council. So.
Okay. So hopefully we can get that on for June 21st. And then we will bring back, I think, an ordinance regarding tents in the historic district. This went through the Historic Review Board, and they have some recommendations that will formulate in an ordinance that will be on the June 21st agenda. So that's what we have for right now. Mayor and Council, unless you have any questions or additions to that.
Okay, can we get a draft of that ordinance on the tents prior?
We'll get one prior. We'll probably won't have that until after the first of the month, but we'll certainly have that.
Mayor, before you move on, I make a comment on the future agenda.
I'm gonna allow it just one time, but you gotta keep it to 1 minute.
It'll probably be less than that.
That's even better. No, I'm just kidding.
So with respect to the future agenda items, I would ask that the city council begin processing through the thought process of rejecting the federal money, the $2.5 million that Mr. Myers referenced. I think it's broken up into $2.25 million payments, thereabouts. And I recognize Mr. Lukenbach had commented in a previous meeting that we'd be idiots not to take the federal money. But I would comment that we would be idiots to take it because that's our tax dollars, right? And furthermore, it's not even tax dollars that have been paid yet. Financially, the city's in great shape, and someone is going to have to stand up and say, no more. And I would ask that from the city council. Thank you.
You made it 1 minute, thank you. Okay. Let's move on to council comments. I'll start with Kathy.
This is my first meeting since the election. I'm honored to be sitting here with these gentlemen, and I want to thank everyone who supported me during the election campaign, those who helped me address postcards, put signs in your yards, keep me standing on my feet. It's going to be a pleasure to serve you, and I'm very thankful to all of you. Also like to say happy birthday to Shelley Goodwin, who helped me a whole lot when I was trying to get everything organized. Thank you and happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Yeah, happy birthday. Jared?
Me? Oh.
That's you.
Well, we haven't had the county meeting, but we did have a Marketplace redevelopment meeting this morning. And a couple things that were brought up is the city has, we've received a grant from an anonymous individual or company, and they will match up to $250,000. So right now, I think our balance on the restoration of the restrooms is right at 740,000, Kent? Yeah, it's like it's 740,000. So we've gone to the county to ask the county to help support try and match what the city has put in, which is 200,000, and then we'll be putting in most probably another 200,000. So we're trying to get like 400,000 from the county. We're going to vendors and to individuals and companies and we deal business with, vendors, and we're asking for their support to kind of help us get this $250,000 match. So, I mean, if anybody wants to pull out the checkbook and write out a check for $250,000, oh, Mary? That's what George said, your husband. Anyway, no, we're always looking for donations to help out with getting the market square developed. We got a lot of damage on the bricks and that, so I mean that's going to be like 600. I think the estimate was 640,000 to redo those bricks. So, we're looking at a 101.3 mil to get the whole square looking good again. Yeah, no, I will not want to give back the declaration money. I mean, there's a lot of broadband that we can be using in the city, and I don't think we need to give that money back. The money goes to the state, it goes to the county, and it goes to the city. Now, if we turn the money back, it's just going to go back to them, and then are the taxpayers going to have to pick up this tab in order to get this broadband going? I don't think so. And therefore, again, I go to the county and I sit there in the county meetings, and I don't see anybody at the county meetings wanting to tell the county to turn back their $5 million. And this here can be used for broadband and infrastructure. I think we're going to find out more about where this money can be utilized, but I think it would be very irresponsible, I didn't call anybody idiots, irresponsible for the city to turn this money back over to the federal government. No. What else was there? Constitutional rights are liberty and life. Respect the right to life. I think the voters have turned out and said a whole lot of things about where they would like to see things go. The voters. Oh, okay. I can't go there. Anyway, thank you, Daniel. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Bobby?
Okay, I'm done.
Bobby?
We had an airport airport advisory board meeting today. Just real quick report. T-hangers stand at 100% with 26 people on the wait list. On the fuel, we are currently, the airport, through the first 4 months of this year, we're up 49% over fuel sales of last year. So as the FBO owner stated, it's going gangbusters out there. And they're predicting that we could sell as many as 450,000 gallons of fuel this year. So it'll be a record year. So that's all I've got.
I, Thomas Musselman, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of Councilman of the City of Fredericksburg, State of Texas, and will do to the best of my ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and the laws of this state, so help me God. I made that oath in 2005. I made that oath in 2007. I made that oath in 2009. I made that oath in 2010. I made that oath in 2018. And I made that oath in November of 2020. We had lots of bandying about of the Constitution of the United States. I taught school for 26 years in the state of Texas, 24 of them at Fredericksburg High School. I taught advanced placement United States history and advanced placement United States government and politics for damn near 20 years. I read the Constitution twice each semester for over 20 years, which is probably more than most Americans do during their lifetime. Article 6 of the Constitution of the United States, Section 2, says, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding." This is called the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution. And what it does is it establishes a ladder of authority. And the ladder of authority starts with the Constitution. And it goes to the laws passed by the Congress of the United States, which are the representatives of the states and the representatives of the people. And it is all the treaties passed by the Congress of the United States. And it is all of the Supreme Court decisions which tend to change laws passed by the Congress of the United States. And then the ladder of authority goes to the states. And the laws, we are subject to the laws passed by our state legislature. We are subject to the law, to the opinions passed by our state Supreme Court and our state courts of appeal. And we are subject to the ordinances passed by our county commissioners and by our city councils. So if there is anyone in this community who believes that myself or another member of the city government has violated the Constitution of the United States of America in any way, I would encourage you to go to the nearest United States attorney and have them file federal charges against me. Or if you feel that I have violated the Constitution of the state of Texas or any law of the state of Texas, I would ask that you go talk to Lucy Wilkie in the 216th Judicial Court, the district attorney in Kerrville, and file charges against me. Or if you can find enough people in the city of Fredericksburg who believe that I have been unfaithful in the duty that I swore to uphold to the citizens who elected me these 7 times, then find enough people to sign a recall petition and try to remove me from office. But if you go that way, I will fight back. It is time for...
Tom. I've been trying to give you some leeway. I think you've been stating facts and policy responses, but I just want to caution you not to get into.
Okay, I don't want to get. I'm not going to get into. The last thing I'm going to say is that I think it's time for people to try to understand what government's all about. Okay? We are in the business in this community of fixing roads, of making sure your poop goes away, of making sure you have enough water to drink and water your lawn, and to provide police and fire protection. Okay? Those are our jobs. Okay? We are subject to other higher authorities. There have been all kinds of talks about emergency declarations and stuff. The city council could say, okay, we're going to do away with all those things tomorrow, but we'd still be subject to it because of the ladder of authority set out by the Constitution of the United States. So if you've got a problem with these things, go to the places where they can do something about it. And it's not in this chamber. Maybe it's in the county courthouse. Maybe it's in Austin, Texas. Maybe it's in the capital of the United States. We've got a good thing going here. I encourage more people to get involved. And I've said this time and time and time again. If you want to know what your city's doing, sign up and get the agendas sent to you. Not just the city council agenda, but the agendas for all the boards and commissions. Become involved in your community. Every member of the council up here has an email address, and they have a phone number that's public. I've had very few people contact me. Tim Riley's contacted me during COVID, but he hasn't lately. I'm sure he will now. Okay? Have a cup of coffee. Support Jim Giroux. I thank you for coming to council meetings. I hope that we can continue to have people come to council meetings and to try to help us positively manage this ever-changing community, because it's a lot different than it was 40 years ago. And no one wants to keep it the way it was, but we've got issues, okay? And we will continue to have issues. So I thank the council for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Tom. I do have a comment. I'd like to personally thank all the heroes. We had a bus accident, FISD bus accident here last week on Llano Street, and it's what makes Fredericksburg great. We had parents, we had bystanders, we had the Gillespie County Board of Realtors provide space for those primary students. and giving them comfort, water, and snacks. And that's what makes Fredericksburg a hometown that we can all be proud of. So thank you for all the heroes that help with those little rugrats. Thank you. Okay, with that being said, we shall go into executive session. The city council will recess its open meeting and convene from executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. A, consider and discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property located in the vicinity of US 290 East between Schmitzansky Road and Peregrinalis River Crossing, approximately 1.3 miles east of the city of Fredericksburg. Section 551.072. I entertain a motion to go from regular session into
I move we
executive.
go from regular to executive session.
Have a motion by Jerry and a second by Bobby. All those in favor? Aye. And we'll take a 3-minute recess.
Okay.
Am I gone?
Hey, folks, we're back in regular session after going into executive session. Does someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we reject the Baxter's offers and go to condemnation, eminent domain of the property in question.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Anything else, Daniel?
Well, the statute requires that the motion, if the council wants to authorize the use of eminent domain, the statute requires that the motion be made in a very specific way. And so I put that in the memo on page 97 of the agenda packet. And so the motion.
Here it is.
Okay.
So we have two issues. We have one is the executive session discussion, if council wants to take action related to that, and then we will need to take up item 7F separately.
Do I need to read the statement down here? I move.
Not yet.
You had part of your motion, you wanted to reject the offer. You can go ahead and do that now.
Okay, I want to reject the offer that was made by the Baxter's, what?
Archway LLC.
Archway LLC.
Okay, we have a motion by Jerry. Do I hear a second? Second by Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Now, we'll entertain a motion after we came on Jerry.
It's here.
You got it? Right, for item 7F, and the memo's on page 97.
Say it again, Daniel, please.
Just read the statement?
Yeah, right. So we're going to move to item 7F.
Okay, item set, thank you for your direction, Daniel. Okay, 7F.
The agenda memo for that item is on page 97 of your agenda packet. And at the bottom of that page 97, I've got essentially in quotes the form of the motion that would need to be made if council wants to take that action.
Okay, so I'm going to read 7F. Consider the approval of Resolution 2021-7R authorizing the use of the power of eminent domain to condemn and acquire property from Archway LLC as follows. A 1.124 acre waterline easement, said easement located on the along or adjacent to the northern boundary of US 290 East, approximately 1.3 miles east of the city limits, for the public purpose of installing and maintaining public utility water pipelines and all laterals and acupunctures necessary or incident thereto. Okay, as on agenda item 13.
Oh, okay. I move that the City Council of the City of Fredericksburg approve and adopt a resolution 2021-07R authorizing the use of the power of eminent domain to condemn and acquire 1.124 acre waterline easement from Archway LLC. Said easement located near the adjacent to the northern boundary line of US 290E, approximately 1.3 miles east of Fredericksburg limits, for the public purpose of installing and maintaining public utility water pipelines and all laterals and apertures necessary for the incident thereto.
Appurtenances.
What is that?
Appurtenances.
Appurtenances.
Yes.
I'll second. Here we have motion by Jerry and a second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
And a motion by Bobby and a second by Tom. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Perpetuous.